Dzień dobry, szanowni pani, bardzo dziękuję za zaproszenie. My name is Alexandra Pulvermacher. I'm from the University of Klagenfurt. I'm there right now struggling with my dissertation, also about Poland, Poland in the Second World War, the suppression of the Polish underground by Gestapo and NKVD. But today I will talk about a different topic. It's about the entanglements between the Aktion Reinhardt and the Aktion Zamość in the so-called Zamośćczyzna, this area in the south of the Lublin district. And to show you where this is, I have a map here. I hope you will kind of see a little bit. Here I have a map of the general government, parts of it, and the Lublin district is here in the west. And as you can see, there is a very high concentration of labor camps, but also of extermination camps. This is not a coincidence. It has to do with a person who was active in both actions. Odilo Globocnik, who actually comes from my hometown, from Klagenfurt. He was socialized there. He was born in Trieste. He was Gauleiter in Vienna, very corrupt, that even the Nazis could not bear him, and so he was sent to the east as an SS police leader in Lublin, but he very much exceeded his competences, so he became the responsible for the Aktion Reinhardt and for the Aktion Zamość as well. Concerning the Aktion Reinhardt in this Zamośćczyzna, which consisted mainly of the powiaty Hrubieszów, Tomaszów, Biłgoraj and Zamość, there lived about 50,000 Jews. Of these Jews, by October 1942, already 47,000 were killed, mainly in the extermination camp of Belzec, which you can see here in the very south, which was actually located in the middle of the Zamośćczyzna. And 3,000 Jews were killed on the spot or on the way to this extermination camp. So I think that's a big difference to other countries. The Holocaust happened right in this region. Everybody knew about it. That is also what we learned from the diary of Zygmunt Klukowski, who lived in this area. He was the head of the hospital in Szczecin, and he tells us on a daily basis almost what happened in this area. And he he really tells us that from the very beginning everybody knew what was happening to their Jewish neighbors. So they sent people to Belzec, and they knew that the Jews are killed in the gas chamber and burned afterwards. What is very important here is that this Aktion Reinhardt in this area was pushed very hard and was already finished in November, on November 9th, which is a German holiday, you can say. They declared already the end, the official end of the Aktion Reinhardt, though still 3,000 Jews were still living. And actually they were planning already the next project. Here I have a picture of an exhibition in 1941 with Himmler. He shows us a model of the General Plan East. This was a huge demographic plan which comprised the expulsion of 31 million Slavs. The Holocaust actually was already a precondition for this. So they already planned to kill the Jewish population and to expulse the whole Slavic population. Because, as we know from Hitler's Mein Kampf, My Struggle, he considered Germanization, and that was actually the plan also for the general government. According to Hitler, it was not possible to Germanize, just make Poles or Chinese people talk German, but in his opinion, it was necessary, or it was only possible to Germanize the soil. So, and so 3 days after the official end of Aktion Reinhardt, the German occupiers declared this area, the Zamość, to the first German settlement area. So I think that's a very important caesura and no coincidence, and thus the Aktion Zamość became kind of a test run for this general plan East. And we can see what would have happened if the Germans would have won the war, maybe. So, in the Aktion Zamość, which is not so interesting in qualitative respect, about, I think, 50 to 60,000 people were actually deported. As many actually were fled from their places. They went into the forests or went to other places, to relatives. But what is very interesting are the procedures which were applied in this action, because there were many procedures taken from the early deportations and adopted, but also from the Holocaust, from the Aktion Reinhardt actions, changed in this case. What we have here is the expulsion or eviction of whole villages. So in the early morning or during the night, everybody was taken out of their bed, no matter if sick, if not able to walk, women in the labor, or little babies, elderly people. They were taken to the marketplace and then had to wait for hours, and then they were taken to assembly centers or transit camps, and there was a registration and a selection and segregation, which again adopted procedures which we already know from the early deportations and also from the Holocaust. And now there are some, I have to emphasize, of course, there's a big difference between the Aktion Reinhardt and the Aktion Zamość. In the Aktion Reinhardt, all the Jews were killed in the end. There were only a few who could survive in this area, actually very little. But in the Aktion Zamość, the people suffered very different fates. So they were selected according to two categories, according to ability to work and according to their racial value. This is also a difference to the Aktion Reinhardt. So a part of this population was separated, all who were considered not able to work. That meant elderly people, sick people, people who were children from an age from 7 months to 14 years. All these children were separated from their parents. That's also a difference to the Aktion Reinhardt. And all these people were supposed to go to the so-called Rentendörfer, rental villages. And that's again an entanglement to the Holocaust actually, because these rental villages were former Jewish ghettos. And there was also a calculation of the German occupiers that these people would kind of suffer also death or starvation or something like that in the long run, because they were not supposed to be to get medical care, they were not supposed to get heating material, food, and so on. So then a big part of these people, about 39,000, were supposed to were brought to the German Reich for forced labor. Some of them to Auschwitz. some of them also to Berlin to replace the armament Jews. And there are some trains, they brought people from the Zamość area to Berlin. And from there, there was this Fabrikaktion in February 1943. Jewish armament Jews with the families were brought to Auschwitz, and actually most of them were killed right away. They had to go to the, or were sent to the gas chambers because they were also considered not capable of work. Yeah, all the people who came to Auschwitz were those who were considered as racially not so valuable. They also the chance to survive was actually very low. Only 20% could survive this. So I have here some pictures. The baby on the top, they took pictures of all these children who were sent to the rental villages. So that was done later by the Polish population to find their parents again, because that turned out to be really difficult, and we talk about thousands of children who were separated. The lower picture, this triptychon, this is Czesława Kłoka, a 14-year-old girl who was brought to Auschwitz with her mother. She died 3 months later because of the really bad living and working conditions in this camp, which became an extermination camp then. Actually, it was, at this time, it was already an extermination camp, but also a labor camp. This whole events, especially the transports of children to the to Gawolin and other places in the Warsaw district, caused a lot of unrest in the Polish population. So there was this perception, actually, which in the Polish population, that now they would suffer the same fate as their Jewish neighbors. So and this really had the consequence that the resistance actually exploded, and the resistance in Poland was already on a very high level, but in this area, in the general government, and even beyond, it exploded, and the German occupiers more and more lost the control over this area. Because the Armia Krajowa and also the battalions Chłopskie and others, also the people who fled to the forests, they started to organize attacks on the German settlers, because these villages where they had evicted the Polish population before, they resettled German, ethnic Germans from Bessarabia, for example. Also the family of the later German President Horst Köhler was settled there, and he was actually born in this area, I think in Skierbieszów. So this whole area became more and more a place of a kind of a Bandenkampfgebiet. So the Germans tried to get control over this, but yeah, it became more and more brutal. Many villages were bombed and burned down, or the population was killed. So the retribution was really getting more and more radical. So we have a huge radicalization in summer of 1943 in this area. Yeah, and now I come to my conclusion. So we have first the Aktion Reinhardt, like in the whole general government, in this Zamość, this area in the south of the district of Lublin. From 50,000 Jews, 47,000 were already killed by October. Then we have this official end of this Aktion, and right after that, Aktion Zamość already starts. But we have some overlapping because 3,000 Jews were still alive. They were hunted down in the following weeks and months. So the chance to survive for Jewish people in this area was almost zero. In Aktion Zamość, which was carried out also really very brutally, this was different. So Poles suffered very different fates. And I think what is very important is this perception of the Polish population that now they could suffer the same fate as their Jewish neighbors. So we see, while there was not so much solidarity with the Jewish population, which has many causes, because it was really difficult in this area to help Jews, the solidarity for their own ethnicity was really high. And this might be a reason that, because the resistance exploded literally, that the Germans, while they were able to carry out the Holocaust without many problems, in the Aktion Zamość, they really reached their limits. So the German rule comes to a limit. So the question is, would the Germans be able to realize this project, the whole General Plan East? Maybe not, but I think the Aktion Zamość shows that the Germans were not done yet, and the Slavic population could have faced even worse than it did anyway. So thank you, bardzo dziękuję.